My name is Supun Silva and my student ID number is MS2090542. Today I'm going to demonstrate how the microservices can be deployed to AWS Elastic Kubernetes Service cluster using CloudFormation. So I'm using this tool called AECS control to run the stack to create the cluster and create T2 small nodes, which is two nodes. So what I'm going to do is first run the command to create the cluster and two nodes. So this is the command using EKS control tool and in AP South 1 region, and I'm going to create two nodes, T2 small nodes in this cluster. So if I execute this command, it starting to create the cluster using CloudFormation stack. So if I go here and it is running this the template to create the first it's creating the cluster in Kubernetes Elastic Kubernetes services. So now it's creating the cluster using the template. Once the cluster is created, it will start creating the actual nodes using CloudFormation. So this is taking some time to create. So meanwhile, I will explain my microservices. So for this project, I have 5 microservices. First one is issue service. Uh, it is running on Node, and this is the API to get the issues by the user ID. So what it does is connect to the AWS DynamoDB and get read that table and return the items length, which is like how many uh, issues that provided user is assigned to, uh, and the port is 3001. That is the port that this node application is running, and this is the comment services, which is similar to the previous one, and it is also getting data from comments table in DynamoDB. So this is the URL for that, and this one is running on 3003 port. Uh, this is the pull service. This is also the same uh, thing, but it is getting data from the pulse table. So this application is running listening to port 3002, and I have API gateway. What it does is it is read from all these three services, that microservices, issues, pulls, and commits, all are in these ports, and it is passing this user ID and taking the uh, response from XUSOL, and this is I'm getting all the responses from these three APIs, and what I'm doing is get the data, and this total data count is actual data count like per page. I will explain that later on. And this is the logic that I'm using to get the percentage of the commits, issues, and pull. This port is racing to 3004 port. This is also a Node.js application. And I have another service called sync service. Uh, what this doing is this is also this is actually the application to update the DynamoDB. So it is getting data from this URL. This is that count that I showed before. So this is hard coded value for now. It has total data count 100. So I'm getting 100 data from this API called WSO2 micro integrator, and takes that data, and one by one it will transform to this object, which is getting the URL ID, user ID, and username, and it will put to this item table. Sorry, to the issues table, which is this one, and it will console log each item in console, like issue ID, and successfully added in a loop. So this is the other one, the pulls. This is doing the same thing. It will update the pulls table in the DynamoDB, uh, and also the commits. I'm transforming, only getting the SHA as a primary key, and these two values, and I'm saving this in the database. So the AWS config I hard coded in here, but in actual production environment we can use secrets and config map to configure these kind of sensitive data. So for the demo purposes, I only hard coded in the application. So that is done in all these three uh, three services as well. So if I check now, no, it's still creating the cluster, so it will take some time. Till that, I will pause the recording and uh, get back. So the cluster creation is done, and it is running to create two nodes uh, in EC2. So I, this is active, and if I go to EC2, and sorry, it's creating the node group to first run the instances. Uh, Now it's creating two nodes in the EC2. So one is ready, and this one still in pending state. One second instance is also ready. Uh, Once in it, it will update the So all the cloud stack is done, and what it's doing is creating this kube config to update the configuration with the cluster that we created earlier. So it will configure to connect directly with that cluster. Uh, so it's done creating the cluster and two nodes. So if I type kubectl get all, it will show the services that are running, only the Kubernetes service in the cluster. So now I'm going to deploy this application to the cluster. I already created the Docker image for each of these microservices. I have 5 Docker images for each service. So I have sync API, API gateway, and commit app, pulse app, and issue service API. So I'm first going to create deployment of issues API deployment, and it will create one replica using this image supermlk slash issue services API. So what I'm going to do is first going to run the kubectl apply chef and the folder name okay it is. So when I run it, it is going to create deployment and a service for this to communicate with this pod. So this is the actual service which is listening on port 3001, and the target port is 3001, which is container port corresponding to the issues API. So if I get all and the get all command, now it shows me the one deployment, and I have one pod. It is ready, and I have a service for that deployment. So now I'm going to deploy all my application to the cluster. Uh, this is the commits app. So so it also create the deployment and the service, which are these two with the port 3003 and the application container image and the pulse API. So now I have deployed 3 microservices, which are issues, commits, and pulls. These 3 are ready in the cluster. So if I type kubectl get pods, now I have 3 pods running for each microservice. And if I run ctl get this for to get the services, I have 3 services, and get it will show me all the three deployments. So now my three microservices are ready. Now I'm going to uh, create my API gateway. It has this load balancer to access from external IP. So this is the load balancer service, which is target to this application, which is running on port 3004, and this is the deployment for the API gateway. So I'm going to run this command again. So I have the load balancer created and the actual deployment. So what I'm going to do is check the service to get that DNS address to check the applications. So get ctl get cc. Now this is my external IP address. So I have this load balancer service spawn here, and if I go to if I copy this address and paste here, it is still it's ready, and this is the route. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the DynamoDB. These tables that I have already populated with data, I will show you how to do it later. So for example, if I go to issues table and grab some ID from here, so this one, and if I type here the slash slash the user's name, and it will return me how many commits, percentage of the commits out of 100, and percentage of the issues, and how many polls, like overall percentage. So this is my uh, microservices application. So if I go here and okay, for that I will clear my console and qctl, all it will show me all the deployments and services in this cluster. So I have 4 pods, the API gateway, commits, issues, and pulls applications, and I have 4 services. One is the load balance, and another ones are cluster IP, and I have 4 deployments, also 4 replica sets. Then I have this application, which is if I open my architecture, I have this sync service to sync the database. So This API gateways that I have built with Node.js application. So I'm going to deploy this application as well. It has deployment and also a service, and it has this cron job. What it does is every minute I can change this for the demo purposes. I have set it for each minute, roughly 1 minute. It will run this curl command. So these are actually, this is the sync API service and the port, and this API. If I go to that API, this is the API, and what it's going to do is get data from this GitHub API and WSO2 microintegrator uh, repository, and it will update the database. So what I'm going to do is try to delete all data here. So the commits. So the tables are empty. What I'm going to do is first uh, run kubectl. I'm going to first deploy the application. So apply -f and k8 and say pi file to create the deployment for this application. The deployment is created, so it is not run yet. So what I'm going to do is kubectl and this is the sync API. Also, I'm going to deploy the service before deploying the cron job. Service. Now I created the deployment also. Sorry, the service also. So what I'm going to do is check the logs of the pod using kubectl logs and dash dash. Follow these logs. So the application is running on that port. Now I'm going to run this cron job on this container. Uh, so the job is created. Once it executed, it will show me the logs that it is updating the database. So now the cron job is running. It is updating this database. So if I go here and try to see the data here. Now all the data is synced and updated to the database. And if I wait a minute or so, it will run the cron job again. It is running on each minute, so see now it's updating the database again. So we can configure this to run in uh, within 24 hours or 2 days or 1 year or something like that. So for the demo purposes, I set it to 1 minute. So if I go back to my application and if I execute this, it will show me the data of this person. So if I try to get anyone else like this username, it will show different uh, metrics. Likewise, I can get everyone's data from this URL. So I think I covered everything. And I forget to push the data to the repository. I will do that right now. And thank you very much.